Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something absolutely wild. We're going to dissect how surviving an economic apocalypse isn't just about recovering. It's actually about ruthlessly building inescapable infrastructure. We are peeling back the layers to look at the very architecture of capitalism itself. Let's start by looking at that blinding optimism that always seems to precede a massive fall. Back in the roaring 1920s, people genuinely believed the good times were just going to last forever. They trusted that the decade was, quote, absolutely roaring. It was this era of new radios, flashy cars, and just pure, unquestioned confidence. Fast forward a few decades, and we saw that exact same intoxicating optimism hit again. Picture a young Jeff Bezos in 1994, discovering this one staggering statistic. The internet was growing at a mind-blowing 2,300% a year. Both of these eras shared this one major thing, the absolute unwavering belief that they had discovered an economic engine that could literally never stall. And to really wrap your head around the sheer scale of the mechanics we're talking about today, you have to look at the numbers. On one hand, you have the historical 1929 crash that vaporized billions of dollars practically overnight, wiping out the hopes of an entire generation. And on the flip side, we have a modern empire forged in the fires of a much later crash, one that now generates over $1 million in revenue every single minute. It's a staggering contrast, right? Total catastrophic collapse versus unyielding, hyper-optimized growth. So here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We're mapping the anatomy of capitalism across 5 distinct phases: the intoxicating boom, the devastating crash, forging a new blueprint, the human cost, and finally, the next horizon. Let's just jump right in. Part 1. The intoxicating boom. Pure hype and cheap debt. In this phase, the fundamentals are completely thrown out the window. It's actually fascinating how much the 1920s parallel the 1990s here. In the 20s, banks were basically handing out margin loans like candy. It meant anyone, literally your local barber, could buy $100 of stock for just $10 down. Wall Street became an adult playground running entirely on good vibes instead of actual profits. Now compare that to the relentless dot-com hype of the 1990s. Amazon was running on this strict get big fast mantra. Jeff Bezos was literally typing out his initial business plan while his wife drove them cross-country in a beat-up Chevy Blazer. And the company was just burning through cash at breakneck speed. In both scenarios, the growth felt like gravity, Nobody was stopping to check if the floorboards could actually hold the weight of the party. But, well, gravity always returns, bringing us to part 2, the devastating crash. Those dizzying highs inevitably plunge into sheer devastation. If we trace the domino effect across these timelines, it's pretty chilling. October 1929 hits, Black Tuesday wipes out $14 billion, which, by the way, adjusted for inflation, is over $200 billion today. That triggered terrifying bank runs and shot national unemployment up to an agonizing 25% in the 1930s. Fast forward to March 2000, the dot-com bubble violently bursts. Tech stocks implode practically overnight. By 2001, Amazon's seemingly unstoppable stock crashes from over $100 down to just $6. The music had completely stopped. What's wild is the contrast in how the media and leaders reacted to these crashes. Back during the '29 crash, President Hoover was on the radio calmly telling the public that the economy was, quote, fundamentally sound. Newspapers were actually printing sunny headlines about markets simply adjusting, even as breadlines were growing down the street. But in 2000, modern media took the exact opposite approach with Amazon. They aggressively predicted an imminent bankruptcy with massive headlines screaming Amazon bomb. So in 1929, it was pure, unadulterated denial. In 2000, absolute panic. Which leads us to part 3, forging a new blueprint. This is where the rules of the game get completely rewritten. See, instead of panicking, the survivors of these crashes went cold, got incredibly surgical, and started actively rewriting those rules. The crucial takeaway here is that surviving a crash requires becoming the absolute backbone of the next era. After the Great Depression, FDR didn't just try to restart the old economy. He built a brand new blueprint for the nation. He created the WPA and CCC for massive physical infrastructure, the SEC to rein in those wild markets, and the FDIC so people could actually trust banks again. Decades later, Bezos did the exact same thing, just for the corporate world. To survive that dot-com burst, he built massive hyper-optimized physical fulfillment centers. He engineered inescapable customer loyalty through Amazon Prime, and he launched AWS. They both realized the same hard truth. Good intentions don't work. Mechanisms do. Let's actually look a bit closer at one of those mechanisms, because Amazon Web Services perfectly captures this shift. This is so crazy. It started as a desperate internal necessity. Amazon was just trying to manage their own explosive, chaotic growth with modular infrastructure and elastic computing power. But that internal fix ultimately transformed into invisible, global infrastructure. It became the backbone of the entire internet. It's quietly powering Netflix, NASA, the CIA, and, ironically, even parts of competing giants like Walmart. Bezos didn't just build a store, he built the very system that everyone else relies on to exist. Now, we have to transition to part 4, the human cost. The real price of all this efficiency. As we pull back the curtain on these massive achievements, the sources present us with a pretty harsh reality. You look at the visceral desperation of fathers standing outside shuttered Detroit auto plants in the 1930s, or migrant families fleeing the choking black blizzards of the Dust Bowl to live in scrap metal Hoovervilles. And then you compare that to the grueling surveillance reported inside modern Amazon fulfillment centers. The source material highlights accounts of digital sweatshops, impossible quotas, and workers collapsing from exhaustion. It really underscores how the human element always pays the heaviest price for extreme, unyielding efficiency. The toll on the workers is immense. Listen to this quote highlighted in the sources. Some Amazon warehouse workers have hauntingly described their handheld tracking scanners as, quote, the wristbands of Sauron. Wow. It's such a striking way to illustrate how a massive machine, one that runs purely on optimized data and precise mechanisms rather than humanity, can deeply dehumanize its own workforce in the pursuit of absolute scale. And that forces us to ask a really critical question about the systems that provide all our modern comforts. Think about it, from the insured savings accounts that emerged from the rubble of the 1930s to the frictionless 2-day shipping that Amazon Prime has conditioned us all to expect today. When the machine optimizes for its own survival and growth, who is really footing the bill? Finally, we arrive at part 5, the next horizon. What happens beyond the rebuilding? Because as the dust settles and this new infrastructure takes a firm hold, both of these parallel stories inevitably shift toward unimaginable new frontiers. Just as a recovering America woke up from the Great Depression armed with a new industrial base and social safety nets, it stirred to face the massive global challenge of World War II. It mobilized its newfound infrastructure for a massive global stage. Similarly, in 2021, Jeff Bezos stepped down from day-to-day operations at Amazon. He had finished building the everything store. So what did he do? He pivoted to Blue Origin. He shifted his focus to reusable rockets and the staggering goal of moving heavy industry off-planet to keep Earth pristine. For both, the initial rebuilding was never the endgame. It was just the launch pad. So as you navigate today's highly optimized, fully integrated economy, I want to leave you with this provocative thought. When the next inevitable economic crash hits, who will be quietly waiting in the wings with the blueprint for our future? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the systems being built around you.